Yeah. This is shaken that stirred, right?
It is. It is. I haven't made as many cocktails as I did when I made the promo for this show. Hammered by the time it was over. I've recorded it so many times.
And that's it.
That's it. Let me see. Does it look beautiful? Can I see it? Oh, look at you. That's so beautiful.
Yeah,
Cheers.
looks like cheers.
Cheers. Welcome to another episode of Shaken Not Stirred. Today I'm with Nekisha Durrett. I'm so glad you could join me, and I'm so glad that you made a cocktail. You've shown me up. Just yeah.
So.
Do you want to talk about that project? Because I think it's really cool. The messages for the city in Times Square.
Yeah. So that came about kind of randomly. I was I was working on some other projects, and my friend Hank Willis Thomas called me up and asked me if I wanted to produce something for this project that he was doing with his Four Freedoms platform in collaboration with Times Square Arts and Poster House. And when he described the project, I was like, man, this is awesome. Because there were like one or two projects down here that I was going to do, and they kind of fell apart or were delayed because of the COVID restrictions.
Right.
And I had been wanting to do something that was relevant. And so that came along just in time, because I was starting to feel kind of deflated because those things weren't going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, so it was really awesome. And like, I mean, one, to make work that was really relevant to what's happening and that was important was really amazing, but also just to have my work in Times Square was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And to have something like that happen during this time, when I was feeling really down and like wondering when I was going to be able to exhibit my work again, like to be able to exhibit my work in that way, on such a like grand platform before a large audience was really heartening.
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
I mean, in the messages, right? It was, we see you, right? And it was really meant for like frontline health workers, right?
Yeah.
Battling COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Frontline workers, like healthcare workers, domestic workers, just people who are cleaning the streets and just keeping us safe and healthy. These people who are typically invisible.
Yeah.
Always mattered.
Yeah.
And now people are starting to see that, these people matter.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, so much has changed in the last week. Like how would that message be different today?
Oh my God. It's so interesting because, we were at one point, like last week, just 2 weeks ago, we were like lauding the police and they're, keeping our streets safe and all of that. And of course, there's still this whole narrative around police brutality that is a reality. But that is something, because of COVID, like that's something that wasn't getting our attention.
Sure.
And then so to like go from that extreme to watching that burning the burning police vehicle in Brooklyn the other night was it's a stark contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what's so interesting and so powerful about your work is that it's, for a while now, so much of your work is really, is about public, it's public work, right? For the most part, most of the work you're making is for the public, and it's on a pretty large scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of work feels really powerful right now. I think, what do you think what's the potential of work like this, given the times that we are right now in particular? I mean, I think, does this have you thinking about kind of the power that we can have as artists or as an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. In particular, or right now I'm working on, I'm working on a show. It's called 100 Women, 100 Years, 100 Women. And it's the 100th, it's centered around the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are 100 women artists, and the exhibition was going to be at the Park Avenue Armory.
Mm-hmm.
But now obviously that's not gonna happen. So it's going to be this online exhibition. And so I planned this other project that was going to involve me working with a woodworker, and it was going to require a lot. It was going to require me like working with people and working in my studio, and just all the things that can't happen right now. So the delay in the project has caused me to like have to rethink everything, even the concept.
Sure.
And so I'm rethinking the concept, and then this week happened, last week, and the week before. So now I'm doing this project that is where I'm collecting magnolia leaves. So I was trying to think of something that I could do that's small. I'm just working at my kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
So I collected magnolia leaves, and oh man, I'm getting it too. Jesus. Yeah.
No, everything's vibrating.
Yeah. So I've been going on these walks in the cemetery up the street, Rock Creek Church Cemetery, and I started collecting these magnolia leaves, and I had been wanting to do something for a long time with these leaves, and somehow imprinting images into the leaves. And so what I'm doing is perforating the leaves with the names of Black women who've been murdered by police.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
Yeah. It's been pretty intense, meditative.
That's a lot of like trauma to take on. It's interesting. I mean, when we talk about, I don't know, all of this, everything that's going on, and the trauma and I think that it's, I don't know, it's a lot to take on for you.
It is a lot. But this is another thing that I talked to my therapist about, like just remembering how, like I've been thinking a lot about, especially since with all the riots and everything, thinking about my parents in 1968. They both grew up here in DC, and they got married. Well, they met in 1967 and fell in love then. And I'm just imagining like all the craziness that was going on, and they were these teenagers, and to like get engaged during that time and to like plan your wedding. And so they actually, on their wedding day, so they got married 14 days after Martin Luther King was assassinated.
Wow.
So they actually drove down U Street, like 14th Street, U Street, to get to the chapel, and everything was burned out.
Wow.
Everything was burned out. And they got married, like in all that trauma. So
maybe that's hope, though. That gives us hope, right? I think a little that there's still good things that come out of this.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think it speaks to um, resilience. It
Mm-hmm.
speaks to, and another word, it speaks to just a different kind of resistance and a different kind of radicalism, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're taking on this work. So is it going, the work with the Magnolia Leaves, is that going to exist digitally or will it eventually get shown? Because it seems like
It's
the kind of thing that needs to be like,
so it is going to be, so it's right now it's going to be digital.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm trying to figure out how to make something that isn't like just a slideshow.
Sure.
So I'm starting to think of like, I'm going to actually meet with a friend who's doing a similar project. I need to call him up, but doing something with sound.
Mm-hmm.
As it flashes through, it's going to be about 20 of these leaves or however many I can make between now and June 19th, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think about 20 is manageable, and then I can always make more. I think it's going to be an ongoing project.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so it's going to exist online. But I'm meeting with, I'm going to have a Zoom meeting tomorrow with Caitlin Berry
Mm-hmm.
over at Cody Gallery because I was supposed to have a solo show there in the fall. But you know, so it looks like that might be January or March.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk to her about what I'm thinking about, but what I'm seeing is like, is somehow making light boxes for them because you have to view them. You have to view them against light.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about making these light boxes and displaying them that way and having more than 20 and trying to think of um, some kind of environmental treatment in the space.
Yeah. Interesting. Well,
Mhm.
we'll look forward to that. It seems,
Yeah, no, it's been it's been really like I will read about, so I have this list of names of women and and I have some people researching for me. Um, but what I've gotten into a practice of today, because I just kind of started doing this a couple days ago, I've gotten to the practice of reading doing the research about these women before I start making the piece.
mm-hmm.
And it's just hard, like as I'm making every single hole in this piece, I'm thinking about like their lives and the last minutes of their lives. And um, they're all, at least the few that I've done so far, they're all like in the age range of like 22 and 28.
Yikes.
And so like I think about like what I was doing when I was 28 and when I was in that age, and just like what a great time that is in someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
This is this great period of time.
Right.
Um, yeah. So just like really meditating on these women's lives and like giving them like just a small amount of care
Yeah.
in that moment,
Well,
in the moment of making these
right.
pieces, like the care they deserved
Right. And the acknowledgement. I mean, I think that's the
and the
thing.
acknowledgement.
I think that's so, it's so important because I think there's so much of this that people don't know, that like they don't hear about all of the instances, you know, they only hear
Right.
the big ones or the, you know, and there's so many that people need to be aware of
Yeah.
to know
Yeah.
that.
I mean, it shouldn't feel like it feels um like when I started the project and like I was posting the images, like I felt kind of like, is this like, should I be posting this right now? Like this moment is kind of about George Floyd and um but there's so often
It
that
shouldn't just be about George.
it's
You know what I
not.
mean? I think if it
Yeah.
takes George Floyd to like bring all of these other people into view that people didn't know that these things
Yeah.
happened, this trauma has happened, like
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it's not, you know, that's the
Mhm.
thing that can come out of it. It's the
Yeah. But it's like, you know, like mentioning these women's names is like, it's like this radical act, you know, and
Yeah.
it shouldn't be, you know.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Scream their names from the rooftop.
I'm not much of a screamer, but
I know. Well, yeah, either am I. That's just after my 6-year-old. Well, I want to, so, I mean, I think this like plays into it. Like, and I wanted to talk a little bit, kind of about the work you did last year, at the portrait gallery in 2019 for the Outland portrait, because a lot of that work focused on James Baldwin, and that's obviously like kind of so relevant here. And I wanted to kind of talk to you about your relationship to Baldwin and how that has influenced your work. Because I was listening to like NPR this morning, and they had some scholar on there talking about James Baldwin and talking about, I don't know, civility and all this. And I don't know, it just got me thinking more and doing more research. And so I'd kind of love to know more about like your relationship there.
Well, the one of the reasons why I chose to do, well, I should say that I first made that portrait for Duke Ellington School of the Arts, where I'm an alum and I teach there now. And it was a double portrait of James Baldwin and Lorraine Hansberry. And I actually was like just trying to think of who I wanted to make a portrait of, and like who I wanted to kind of pay homage to. And then I found this image of the two of them dancing together. And to me, like it just kind of felt a lot like Ellington. You know, them, both Lorraine and James Baldwin, Lorraine Hansberry and James Baldwin, them both being queer artists. And Lorraine kind of being more closeted, I believe, more to the outside world than she was with like close friends. Like she was out obviously with James Baldwin, and so to just like to see them like in this moment of play together, being queer and being Black, it was just this really beautiful image that to me just felt so much like Ellington. And it was at Duke Ellington where I was first introduced to James Baldwin's his writing. I actually was not considering entering that into the competition at all, because I think at the time, like you couldn't, well, in years past, you couldn't, you had to have a relationship with the person that you made a portrait of. And then someone reached out, like someone saw someone from MPG actually saw my image on my social media and said, "You've got to enter this." And I was like, "I can't." And then once they said I could, then I did. So I had to make this piece over again, which the piece it's like made up of 3,000 handmade clay sculptures. So I had to remake it again. So again, it's like giving this care and attention to people who look like me, people who I may have a shared experience with, and that's a lot of what that piece was about for me. Like just having, like I just imagine like having this huge floating head of James Baldwin. And the other thing about that piece that I should talk about is that there's text in between the two, in between the two portraits, and the text says, "Yes, Lord."
Yeah.
And that was inspired by a quote from James Baldwin, where he was talking about identity and being like three people at the same time, like being the person, being the person who people think you are, the person who you think you are in the moment, and then the person that you actually are, like your destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And being stuck, he compared that to like being all these three people at the same time, as being like being in a tunnel, a
Mm-hmm.
dark tunnel where two trains are about to collide and you're in the middle. And the only thing you can do is you can just submit and just say, yes, Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You've used that before, right?
I have,
I was
yeah,
gonna say, didn't you use that for the project at Walter Reed?
I did. I
Oh,
did. You were there when I was
yes.
a crazy person.
It's good though. It was good. But so but like that gets to the point, like that's like those are the big projects, right? Those are like the really big things that I feel like are out there in a big public way. And I mean, I think right now that's what we need, right? We need to confront these things and confront.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're in this place where these like bold radical statements need to be made,
Mm-hmm.
and um you can't make those statements in a museum or a gallery because they're all closed. So
Mm-hmm.
you're left with public space
Yeah.
or the internet and social media.
Mm-hmm. But I think that's better. I mean, in some of these cases, I think that's a better place to make them, because I think, you know, and I think about this all the time, because I think about the mobile art gallery and what we try to do at Cultural DC and being able to provide this platform. And so much of it is about accessibility. And I just feel like, I mean, it was part of our reasoning when we closed Flashpoint Gallery to go to like a mobile kind of venue in some ways, because we just felt like there's so many people in our community here that don't feel like the museums on the mall are a place for them, or a place that they are welcome or feel comfortable in.
Yeah.
And so I think to be able to put those, I mean, you know, the people that you're reaching in public, you know, so much more widespread. You're reaching so many more people than you would in a museum, and it's a totally different audience.
Yeah, and that was why I got into public art to begin with, actually, because of Cultural DC. Corinne Miller was there at the time, and she saw the work that I was making, which was large scale, but could still fit inside of a room.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, you know, you should think about making public work.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of hadn't really thought of it. I mean, I was interested in like kind of the language of advertising and that kind of aesthetic that does usually occur in like a public place.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I started to just kind of, and also I was making large scale graphics as a production, a graphic specialist at the Smithsonian. And so I was starting to imagine my work bigger, but like not that big, like not like Times Square big.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool.
Yeah. So I think that if you're partnered with the right people, yeah, people who are going to give you kind of your freedom when you're conceiving of a work that's going to be in a public space, it's great.
Yeah.
But there are also a lot of community stakeholders and people who are involved who
Want to say
your idea can end up being very different than what. Yeah.
Trust me, I'm used to that.
Yeah.
Go to a lot of ANC meetings.
Yeah. And also I saw there was a Kimberly Drew it was a great post that she did today where she was calling out museums
Mm-hmm.
for not having commented on what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because, like, I mean, we're starting to see now, like, because of recent controversies, like how museums are made up, like the stakeholders in the museum, like the board members and all that kind of stuff, and like people who weigh in on what can be said and what can't be said. And
yeah,
so, you know, those spaces they aren't always they could be spaces for great conversation.
They should be.
Yeah.
I think that's what has to change. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a movement afoot, and I think you see that. I think I'm starting to see that in a leadership change. It's so slow though.
It's so tiny. It's so minute.
And I think even with leadership changes, there's still always going to be that core and that base to contend with. I mean, and I spent 6 years at one of those big institutions down on the mall. So, and I had to get out of there because it was like too conservative, too, you know, old school. And it's not.
I mean, I have to say, like, you know, the Portrait Gallery, I always say this, like, the Portrait Gallery is one of my favorite museums, and I think they're doing a great job.
Mm-hmm. But relevancy, like, has to extend beyond the work that you put on, like, the walls on the inside. Like, that's not enough. And so they have a bigger responsibility.
It's the curatorial staffs, it's the board, it's like, it's the things that we don't even see.
Right. But they need to be, it's time, right? I think that everybody now is going to start holding people to a higher standard of like where you fall on this. And, you know, it's so hard. I think it's so hard being in Washington because politics drives so much stuff and funding drives so much stuff. And I think people are afraid. They're afraid to, you know, I don't know, support things that might otherwise be controversial.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I mean, like, one thing that's, you know, that I've always been aware of, but I think that a lot of people are becoming aware of, is just like the risks that Black people take or people of color make just to do, like, just to live.
Yeah.
Just to do like basic things, just to like shelter in place or put on a mask to go to the grocery store. You know, our lives are like, I'm not even like I'm not like a voluntary like risk taker.
Yeah.
But just my very existence is risky.
Yeah.
And so people are afraid to take even the slightest risk that Black and
for good reason. I mean, for good reason. Look at, I mean.
Oh, I mean, like white people, like institutions, like people are afraid to, like, you know, stick their neck out.
Yeah. Well,
but somebody's gotta.
Yeah. Well, I think that as the smaller institutions and the people, and I think this is where, like, I don't, you know, at Cultural DC, like, I'm willing to take those risks. I think sometimes my board is like, I mean, when I told them about Devin's project and that we were going to give, you know, that we were going to put this mobile art gallery in Southeast.
That was so awesome.
And we're going to give haircuts to the community. They were like, you're going to do what? And I was like, we're going to do it. It's going to be great. And, you know, when we put Jameer Richmond Edwards' work like next to Gucci, and at a time when those fashion houses were making big mistakes, I mean, you know, somebody has to be willing to do it. And I think that, you know, I hope that Cultural DC is that person, that organization that wants, I mean, that's what I want for Cultural DC. I want us to be that place to give artists that platform. And I know that platform is not nearly the same as those larger institutions, but it has to start somewhere.
Yeah. No, you're right.
You know, I'm willing to take risks.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are.
Somebody has to be
doing the work. You guys are doing the work. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's next? Was school out?
Yes. The last day was Friday. And I'm really, oh man, that was taxing.
Yeah.
The school year with this, oh man.
I don't know how people, and it's interesting because so many people that I've been talking to lately are faculty at, you know, either at colleges or at high schools. And I, as a visual arts person, I think this is challenging on so many levels for kids, just to even understand kind of what's going on, but to try to like move school virtually and then try to do like any kind of visual arts virtually has got to be like, I don't know how that works.
Yeah. It's interesting. So I teach in the museum studies department. I'm actually not, I don't teach in the visual arts department, and I don't know. I am curious, like how they are going about doing this, because I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've been giving my students lots of readings. I kind of started out with giving them a lot of, like, I wanted them to see how COVID was affecting museum institutions, so I was giving them a lot of reading about that. An opportunity for them to kind of be creative, to think about how to kind of address current events with humor. But yeah, but it's hard. Like when you don't see your kids every day. Like I spent most of my time was spent just trying to like track down kids and like shake them down for work.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see them every day, you know?
Right. I'm trying to shake my 6-year-old down for work all the time. It's not working. Just counting down the days till summer officially starts.
Oh my God.
And then trying to figure out like where we go. Like, I don't even know. I mean, the thought of the fall is daunting, and
doing this all over again, or whatever it's going to look like. Like it could be that we're at school for part of the, like half of the week, or that we're always at school and the teachers are changing rooms instead of this. Like, it's just like all the things I've heard are crazy.
I know. I hope for my own sanity, my child goes back at least a couple days. Otherwise, that therapist we've been talking about, she's going to be like, yeah.
Man, your therapist is going to be going someplace nice.
I know. We're going to be doing Zoom sessions, and she's going to be like on a beach.
Oh yeah, she'll be like in Cabo or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I will say that the one nice thing about like virtual therapy is kind of this is like, I've always felt like I wanted a drink while I'm in person doing it. And now we both do it, and
So listen, so I get to see the other side of that though, because my wife is a therapist.
Oh, so she's doing therapy.
She's upstairs right now. She's upstairs right now on a Zoom call with a client. And I'm telling you, especially in the beginning, it was really difficult for her. It was difficult for her. It was difficult for her clients.
You mean to adjust to that new, like.
To adjust, yeah, because it's actually in a way like this is more, I want to say it's more intimacy, but it's not really intimate. It's just like, there's just nowhere to go. Like you're looking right at me. Like I can't like look down at your shoes or like look, behind.
Yeah.
I gotta look right in your face, and I'm like right in your face. See, I'm wearing myself out now, so I gotta back up.
I know this one. I've been so like this with you the whole time.
I know. Oh, really?
Tell me more.
Right.
Because we're talking about some heavy shit.
Yeah. So, the other side of that with the therapy is like, it's exhausting for a therapist. Because
I think that all the time. I mean, I think I love the fact that therapists have therapists, because like it's a lot to take on. We talk about trauma, and it's like,
I know there's a lot of therapy in this house.
Yeah.
There's a lot. We got our couples therapists. We got our own individual therapists. Like, therapy going on.
I'm trying to get one for my 6-year-old for my.
Oh wow.
I mean, I'm only half kidding.
Oh. Jeez. Start them early.
Well, it's either her or me, and it can't all be me. So like,
oh man.
I mean, maybe if somebody started earlier with me, I don't know.
Oh man. I mean, couldn't we all have used therapy?
Right. I will say that I think it's great that like therapy does not have this, like for so long, I feel like it had like a huge stigma. I mean, I feel like the first time I told my mom, I was like, oh yeah, my therapist. She was like, you're what? You're what? And I'm like, yeah, Mom, I'm a therapist.
Oh my God, my mom is so funny about therapy. Like, I told her that I told her that my wife and I that we were seeing a therapist, and she was like, "Oh," she was like, "Me and your father tried therapy a long time, but they've been married for like 50 years."
Yeah. Yeah. My parents are like, I think they just celebrated their 45th. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even quite 50 years. I think no, it's 50. No, they've been married 50 years.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, I remember we tried therapy once." She said, "We went in there like they want to ask you all these questions about where you're from and your parents, and they don't, why ain't all my business? What it's therapy."
They probably didn't get to the part of like, are you having sex? Like falling down on the floor.
She would have been like, "Oh my God, John, it's time to go." They would have just walked out right there.
What this was all about. Whose idea was this?
Oh my God.
Times have changed.
I know.
All right. Well, Nekisha, this has been so fantastic. Thank you for joining me. I feel like we ended on like a fun note. We got real serious at the beginning, but I'm glad we got to talk about some of the things that we did, but this has been fun.
I'm going to drink the rest of my cocktail and then I'm going to finish making art.
Oh. I like that you have to do one to be able to start the other. Because I like that you're so regimented. I'm going to pour my second glass of wine and then I'm going to go have a board call.
I'm very regimented. People don't know that, but I am very regimented.
So you don't ever drink and do work at the same time?
I don't like doing that. Yeah, I don't really like doing that. I feel like I'll mess up or,
Hurt yourself.
Yeah, but afterwards.
Then it's on. Game on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you. And we'll talk to you soon. Stay safe.
It was great to see you. You stay safe as well.
Alrighty. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Are you a big cocktail person? Do you make a lot of cocktails?
I do now.